Hi, everybody, and welcome to this month's Speaker Chat. I'm Tracy Eamon, part of your WSA executive team, premier member, and long-standing supporter of Women Speakers Association, and I love doing these interviews. And today I'm especially excited to have Melanie Benson. She's also on the executive team with me, on the leadership team, and she shares so much of her wisdom and her time with us. And today we're going to delve a little deeper. So welcome, Melanie.
Thanks for having me. I feel like this is coming full circle.
I know. Yeah, and what she's talking about, if you haven't been following us, Melanie and I started SpeakerChat, my goodness, probably like 6 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was crazy. And we did it all on Twitter. So in 140 characters or less. So that was lots of fun. And so I'm going to move things around here. Just give me half a second to make sure that I have our Facebook up and live so I can watch. So if you're coming in and watching us right now live, that's fabulous. Give us a shout out. So just put your name and where you're from into the comments underneath the video, and we'll check back with you in just a little bit. But I want to take this opportunity to share a little bit about Melanie. So just give me a second here. Here we go. So Melanie, I'm going to read your bio. So just it's so well written. So it's awesome. Okay, so Melanie Benson is a profit amplifier and has a gift for guiding fast-paced, mission-driven messengers to thrive financially as they amplify their impact. Her proven simplify to multiply approach consistently accelerates cash flow while elevating her clients into influencer status in their industry. Melanie hosts the weekly podcast Amplify Your Success, is the author of Rewired for Wealth, co-author of Entrepreneurs.com's Startup Guide to Starting an Information Marketing Business, and has her success tips featured in magazines such as American Express Open Forum, Bloomberg Business Week, Women's Day, Parenting Magazine, and University of Phoenix Alumni Magazine. She's on the executive team for the Women Speakers Association and is a member of the Association of Transformational Leaders. Melanie is a proud lifestyle enthusiast and spends her free time in search of the best spas and beaches in the world. And I think I have to add best wineries, right? I can't hear you at the moment.
We have a lot of background noise today. They've decided to drain the storm drains above my house. So I might mute from time to time when it gets a little loud.
I'm like, oh no, technical difficulty.
Now we're all good.
Wonderful.
Yeah, so I was saying, like, I'm still working on the winery part. So we've got a lot of those to explore.
Wonderful. Yes, I love wineries as well. So kindred spirits there. And all of your teaching has been phenomenal. And you know, we decided we met each other before Women Speakers Association came into being. So it was like more like 10 years ago. So it's really wonderful to have you here today.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So you mentioned in your bio that you're a profit amplifier. Can you tell us what that means and how did you get started with this?
So a profit amplifier basically means that you take someone's brilliance and you amplify it. And so when it comes to profit, what I find is a lot of my clients who come into my business and coach with me or go through one of my programs, they have no shortage of passion, they have no shortage of ideas, but they do have a shortage of prosperity and cash flow. But what I found is that usually right under their nose is something that if they just focused on that one thing, that their profitability could grow 10, 20, even 100 times. And so sometimes it's as simple as finding the one thing that you're overlooking or you're so distracted by all the stuff you think you're supposed to do. And just by focusing on it and really intentionally moving that forward in the world, you can multiply your income and you multiply your reach, your impact. And I think most of the people who are speakers and messengers that I know, we're doing this because we want to make a greater difference. We have something we know we can share that can move and propel people into positive results in their life. So, but if we're not getting paid, right, if we're not making the money, it's really hard to keep the passion going. Yeah. And it breaks my heart when somebody feels frustrated or overwhelmed, or even like they're thinking of giving up and going back to something safe, when really if they just shifted a couple of small things, they could totally change the revenue trajectory of their work. And I guess to answer the second part, how did I get started? Well, I came out of a corporate background 20 years ago, and I had a lot of business acumen. I had a lot of business knowledge, but in that world, I felt like I was missing my passion, like my why wasn't being met. And when I started my own business, I realized, oh my gosh, having passion was not enough. And I really needed to integrate great business practices with the passion and the drive and the inspiration to do more and achieve more. And when I finally figured out how to break six figures and I kept growing my own business, a lot of people started turning to me and saying, can you teach me what you're doing? And my sweet spot truly is in the amplification, taking something that has a lot of potential and making it work really big. And so that's how that all came to be. And it's probably the 10th iteration of me and my work and my business over these 18, 19 years now.
That's a good point too, is that, a lot of times we think that, where we're going with something is the end, as opposed to the fact that it is changing, especially when you're doing things like digital marketing, you're online. There's so many things that, we're always having to teach ourselves. So that's a really important fact to kind of keep in mind. And I love that you said just that one thing. I think putting that into perspective is huge for people, because you think that there's so many things that you have to do, whereas it's just that little tiny switch and concentration on one, and where you focus is where you're going to get results. So I love that
what you focus on is what expands, right?
Yeah.
But we're focusing on a lot of things. I called it the multiple train syndrome. We're trying to move a lot of trains forward. That's where the overwhelm kicks in, is we're moving so many things forward at once and we feel like nothing's actually getting enough results. Mm-hmm. And that's because, especially for many people who are in this work, it's just you or maybe you and an assistant. And that's a lot to try and keep track of, to, give attention to, so it starts to grow. And I'm a big fan of simplify to multiply. You might want to write that down if that's speaking to you. I know we've talked about it a lot over at WSA. Is like when you simplify and you really give something your full attention, that's when it actually has the potential to multiply.
Yeah, I love that. Simplify to multiply. I think everybody needs to write that down. And if you're coming a little bit later in this, you definitely can come back and watch the replay afterwards, but stay with us as we move through. I know we have some watchers there, but they haven't put their names up, so I'm not exactly sure who they are. But yeah, put your names in. Let us know if you have any questions along the way. We'll keep checking back. We are checking back on the Facebook page link. We will check back on the individual groups afterwards. So just so you know, if we don't see you right away, we're not ignoring you. It's just too many windows open. We don't want to miss anything of this incredible training today. So can we talk about why some people watch ideal clients or opportunities literally pass them over in the marketplace, while others seem to have a flood of new business?
Yeah, so what we're talking about here is the invisibility syndrome, right? You have a great body of work. You're really passionate about what you do. You know what you do can make a difference. You know what you do works. You know you can get results for people, but for some reason, you're out there spreading your message in the world. You think you're doing a great job of being inspiring, but you're not able to get the clients coming in. And interestingly enough, this with the changes in the marketplace and a lot of the online marketing that people do with Facebook and social media, what's happening is, first of all, some of these platforms are really flooded, and secondly, the effectiveness is starting to shift right now. And what happens when you're being passed over, or you literally sit and watch somebody choose your competitor who you're just as good at, if not better, is you are in the invisibility cloak. And there's a couple of different things that happen. One of which is your message may not necessarily be showing up in the right places to attract those right people, or you're not showing up consistently because You get out there a couple times and then you get so busy working with clients, or maybe you start dealing with some mindset issues. You start to have doubts and fears and you notice yourself pulling back. When your ideal clients are ready to make those buying decisions, you have to be in front of them in a consecutive, consistent way, so that when they're ready to jump, when they're ready to make the leap, you've nurtured that connection, you've nurtured that relationship, you've continued to have conversations with them, whether that's online or in person, and now they choose you. The other thing is, you have to have the confidence to stand in your truth and make the request, make the ask of them. So I had something that happened to me several years back. I was personally going through a really challenging time. It was right around 2009. And actually, I guess it was 10 years ago now. Wow, time flies. It was probably the worst year of my business trajectory. I went through a lot of learnings. I went through a lot of painful evolutions that year, really kind of like reconnecting to my great why, but having to let go of a lot of things that I thought my business and my work was going to be about. And I remember having a conversation with somebody who had approached me and said, hey, I would like to coach with you. And we had this whole conversation, and they were kind of hesitant. And what I did was I interpreted that hesitancy as if that they couldn't afford it. And so I did something I never had done before, and I never did again. And I gave them a deal on my coaching, because I thought, well, I want to work with them. I really enjoy them. And what happened was they said, oh, I need to think about it. And because I wasn't feeling really great about where I was, I'm like, okay. Well, within a couple of weeks, I saw them posting on social media that they had hired somebody who I know was not as good a coach as me, but was twice as much, if not 3 times as much as what I charged. And I thought, wasn't that a great lesson? Now, first of all, I had to pick my jaw up off the floor, right? I was mortified. I'm like, what happened? But then I realized, like, what a great lesson. And that was, when we are not in our own confidence, when we are not like really clear about what our superpower is, and we're in that commanding space. And what I mean by commanding is, we are so clear what our value is, and we have priced ourselves so well, and our messaging is so tuned into that people, you're right, people automatically say yes. That was actually the right person, but I was not clear on my value. I was not in my confidence, and I was not pricing myself right. And they felt that. And see, this is what happens when we're in this invisibility cloak. We literally talk ourselves out of enrollments, sales, bookings. We make up these stories about, like, we're not good enough, or we're not in the right place, or we don't know if we could do it. And our fears kick up, and that actually pushes away, it repels opportunity. And so one of my greatest learnings in that moment was, why was I being invisible? Why was I choosing to pull myself back when I should have, like, been fired up and putting myself right out there into the mix at my fullest capacity possible? And I think that's what happens for a lot of people when they're in this invisibility cloak, is they start to get passed over. And then all of a sudden they build up a story about, well, maybe I'm not good enough. Maybe I'm not as good as those other people. Maybe, my stuff isn't a good fit here. And we take that on, and then we respond from that place instead of our truth. So one of the most important things about this invisibility cloak is, and if you've ever watched the Harry Potter, like, think of it like you're there, but the invisibility cloak has been pulled and nobody can see you, right? Yeah. Is you have to do 3 things really well. You have to know who you are and what your greatest power is, what that thing is you do naturally and powerfully and gets great results. You need to know how to message that. You need to know how to communicate what you do so that your best clients can see you out in the world consistently. That's the 3rd thing. You have to be consistent. And when we're not consistent, and we could be talking about consistent message, we can talk about consistent visibility techniques, we can talk about consistently showing up where your ideal clients are, or where those bookings are, whatever that is. If you don't have those 3 things in place, then my guess is you are getting passed over, because people can't see you when they're ready. And if they do see you, they don't feel that you're right on some unconscious level, and they choose something else.
So they really are pulling from how you feel about yourself.
I think that's so true.
Yeah. And then you're
They
talking
make the
to,
decision because they can feel you.
yeah,
It's like prospects have this sixth sense, right? Like, does this person move me to yes? And I'm not saying hard sale, pushing anything, but do they feel inspired by the way you guide them into the decision process? Or do they feel like, kind of disconnected and I don't really get it? There is a system to getting people to yes. And if you don't have that system for your work, and by the way, it's not one system, it's a system that works for your kind of business,
right.
then you will lose a lot of those clients. You'll lose a lot of those opportunities and they'll literally just not see you.
I love also that you touched on that consistency, which goes back to focus, right? When you stop sharing out your information, when you stop engaging, when you are feeling less than for whatever reason it may be, then it is how people are going to perceive you. It's a perception thing. You also mentioned something else too about asking. It was kind of I'm sort of paraphrasing, but sort of asking for what you want. And it's something that I've always said to my kids, right? Like, if you don't ask, the answer is always going to be no. So
Right.
ask, be confident. So yeah, that's amazing. I bet you there's a lot of people who in the who's watching right now feel like maybe they have that invisibility cloak on them, even though they maybe didn't think they did until they listened today. And I want to give a shout out to Lillian Diaz Imbelli, and she is from the Bronx. Thanks so much for joining us today.
Hi.
And we have another team member, either Gail or Deb. I see you sharing out some great tidbits of information too. So thank you very much for doing that for us. That's awesome. And also, if you know somebody else in your sphere of influence that really could garner a whole bunch of value, this is the right time for them to hear this. Please share this video, this speaker chat to your timeline and let them see as well. Okay. Thank you so much, everybody. All right. So, okay, this is an interesting one. It is, what is an influence trifecta? So trifecta is, if you go to the horse races, which I've been to maybe 2 or 3 times, and that's how I kind of envision the trifecta. So please share with us, what is the influence trifecta?
Also, I didn't know that about horse racing, but I'm glad you brought that up because it's about momentum, right? So, and you might remember this from the Own Your Bold Challenge, which I do a couple times a year. The influence trifecta basically is when you have these 3 factors in place, your momentum accelerates. It's almost like turning on the supercharged blasters for your business. And one of them is when you have the right platform to be consistently seen by your ideal audience. Now, I want to just talk about influence for a minute and why does this matter in being able to make more money and get your work out in a bigger way. Influence is not something that's bad. It's not something, some people are like, oh, I don't feel like I want to have influence or that's so much responsibility. Look, the minute you share your message with another person, you are influencing them. We are influencing people, from our children to, the person that's on our team, to the people in our social media reach. We are influencing people all day long, every day. But what happens is that influence just turns to noise if you don't have authority and credibility behind it. And so the influence trifecta is designed to get your message, your credibility seen in a way that inspires people to want more from you. So think of it like we want to influence people to become the greatest versions of themselves. And so when you influence appropriately and you're really like getting your message above all the noise in your industry, that influence has more power, it has more reach, it has more momentum. And that is the secret behind how some people suffer and struggle for years to get seen and get clients, whereas other people just turn it on and it's like, boom. It's because they have that influence trifecta working. And so the influence trifecta has to do with what is the authority platform you're using. Now, when I teach the Own Your Bold Challenge, what I do is I help you find the right platforms for you. See, what happens, I think, sometimes is we follow different leaders and influencers and we're like, oh, I'll just do what they do. But what they do may not necessarily be the right combination for your community and for your work and how to showcase your brilliance in the best way. So I have a unique formula of how I help people figure out, of all the pieces that are out there, what's your right formula so that you're showcasing from authenticity, from your own natural set of superpowers, so that it's contagious and it's magnetic and it's compelling and it's exciting in your way, right? Like, you don't want to be a cookie cutter version of someone else. You want to find your uniqueness and amplify that. And so if you're not familiar with the idea of authority platforms, and I would love to hear, like, if I say this authority platform and you already have this or you want to do it, shout it out in the comments, let us know. And feel free to tag me, Coach Melanie Benson, when you're doing it, so I can come back later and find your specific comments. But one of them is having a consistent live Facebook presence. So right here for Women's Speaker Association, every month there's SpeakerChat. We have the Premier TV, where we feature WSA Premier members. For some of my clients, I have them set up a YouTube channel where every week they're doing some kind of a live or pre-recorded show that goes up. For some people, it's a podcast. For some people, it might be that there's a portal they write for. So one of my clients works with executive leaders. And so some of these other things don't mean as much to her ideal clients, but having that high profile Forbes article that they turn to once a month or once a quarter to hear from her, that's their authority. That's how they see someone as a credible expert. So you have to find the formula that's right for you. There's about 15 to maybe 18 different platforms that I choose from. But that's what's happening when you have influence in the influence trifecta. Is you found your little power formula and you work that formula consistently. And that's what acts like the magnet that pulls people in.
That's very magnetic, really.
It's exciting too, because then you're not wasting time on things that don't work.
Yeah, well, and that's so important that, you know, a lot of times people think there's a cookie cutter way, and everything that you see that comes at you, and, you know, we're getting Facebook ads and Instagram ads at us all the time based on what we're doing out there. But a lot of times it's not right for how our audience is going to digest the information that we have, how they want to build relationships. It's you know, truly about a relationships in every business now. I don't think there's any out there that can survive without the relationship factor. And doing, you know, the Facebook lives and the videos definitely have so much more power, and they do give that credibility and authority. And, you know, I mean, it's I know that I took part in your bold challenge, and it was always a phenomenal thing to do. I think it's something you got to do like every time you put it up there, because it's always different. Because we mentioned before, like, we're always changing. You're on the 10th rendition of what you're doing, right? So that's fabulous. And I'm looking at some of the comments here, and it's Deb that's sharing out. So find your formula and work it consistently. There's that word again, people. Yeah. Consistency, right? So incredibly important. So why is knowing your ideal client important to get more sales?
Well, I was alluding to this earlier in that you want to attract your ideal audience in. But what happens for a lot of people is they don't really know who that audience is. So they're spending time in their marketing and their visibility activities where they're maybe being seen by a lot of people, but no one's buying. And that's because these are people that don't have the problem or aren't ready to solve the problem. Or they're not connecting to your message because maybe your particular brand is not alluring to them. Like, they're not interested in that particular way you deliver the message. So two things about ideal clients and really knowing who this is first of all, it helps you better use your marketing and visibility dollars. So I think most of the people, now if you work for a corporation, this is about being responsible with your time so you can be more productive and deliver results. If you work for yourself, like you have your own business, or you're just getting started in your own business, there's nothing more important than your time and your money. Money can be replenished, time can't. And even if money is short for you, using your time, your marketing budget, which is your time and your money and your team's time, if you have them, is the most critical thing you do. Because if you're marketing in places where, first of all, you're spending a lot of money and time there and nobody is buying, then why are you there? It's funny, I've had this clarity so many times, but recently I was working with someone in my Own Your Bold circle, and they were saying, like, I really want to attract people who can easily pay my rates, and her rates are not that high. And I said, well, where are you marketing? And she was telling me some of the places that she was marketing, what she was doing, and a lot of reliance on social media, which I'm a big fan of. But what was happening was she was attracting people who were at the wrong stage of their business to make sense of investing in what she did. And so if we're not conscious of who our ideal clients are, and we're just doing the spray and pray method of marketing, I was like, let's just get visible everywhere, then you're wasting a lot of time on people who can't or won't buy from you or use you, right? If you're just enrolling people in your services or your speaker for hire. So we have to know who our ideal client is, or our ideal person or organization that will say yes, so that the effort we're putting into it works. So that's number one. Number two is, if you know who your ideal client is, then the delivery of what you do will be way more sustainable. So I work with a lot of people who have a certain level of success and they want to go to that next level, but something's holding them back. And they feel a little stuck or overwhelmed with the idea of growing bigger. And I remember having this very interesting conversation with a woman who had a 7-figure business in the interior design world. And she wanted to get back to 7 figures, but every single thing I talked to her about, every idea, she would like, no. Like she didn't want to say yes to anything. And I finally was like, are you sure you want to grow your business? And what she revealed was, she goes, I do want to get the income back, but I'm so exhausted. I can't imagine growing my business to that level again. Light bulb moment. When your strategy is working more, you will never, ever want to grow your business more. If you don't want to travel more and you're a speaker, you will not want to grow your speaking career. So what I have found is that if you want to grow more, you have to have a more sustainable, more energetically expansive way to do that. And so working with ideal clients, knowing who they are so that you love showing up every day and getting your work out in the world is one of the ways to make that growth feel more effortless. So those are 2 reasons. I could probably come up with 10, but we don't have time for all 10. Those are a couple of the big ones.
Well, and that goes back to that whole authority, right? So, sharing out your brilliance through the authority and really, putting your information in front of people that are ready to buy because they are at that stage. I think that's an important thing for people to realize. That it may be that market that you're promoting to right now might be close to at the point of wanting to work with you, but they still have maybe some other work to do before they're at the level that you're offering. So, sometimes it's not no forever. It's just no for this particular time, right? So
yeah, and there's actually a life cycle. When you understand who your ideal client is, there's a life cycle of maybe they're not ready now, but ways to bond and connect and educate and nurture them so that when they are really ready to say yes to that greater outcome or that solving that problem, they choose you. And so I love that you brought up, like, sometimes it's not no forever, it's just no right now. Yeah, that is a big part of it, is knowing that you can develop relationships. I had a woman one time who I had met her 12 years earlier. It took her 12 years of being on my list and connecting with me before she was ready. But then when she was ready, she just jumped in and she's like, okay, I'm in. As a matter of fact, my first Own Your Bold challenge, somebody I had known for 18 years said, I'm in. And she joined my highest level mastermind.
Wow.
Because at that moment, she finally knew she could no longer like stay where she was at. She had to do things differently to get new results. So you never know.
No, you never know. And I just want to give a shout out to Dawn Marie. She says, this is great information, and it's always good to be reminded of it. And it's true, as you get caught up in your business and, as entrepreneurs, the bright, shiny objects, all these exciting things we could be doing, it's really good to, get that consistency, that focus, that determination of who your ideal client is and what stage of their business they're in. I think is another thing that a lot of us maybe don't sort of put into the equation, and definitely will be adding that in now. So one of the things that we promised today is to share the secret to shattering earning limits. And that's a bold claim, but hey, you are
I'm the
you
queen of
are
bold.
truly the bold person, right? And what does that mean, and how could someone really do that?
Yeah. First of all, I just want to take a step back for a second and say, I hope that as you're listening in and you're taking in these tips and these insights, that first of all, I want to give you actionable things you can do, but they're also very simple things. Sometimes the fastest path to really having a greater impact and increasing your income isn't about adding more stuff. It's about taking what you have already and doing it better. Doing it more productively and effectively is the fastest path to getting more money. So, and having that impact you want. And that brings me to shattering earning limits. So in my experience, having worked with so many different types of thought leaders, 7-figure business owners, newer business owners, the whole range, the one thing that makes the greatest difference is to decide. When people join my Own Your Bold program, or they come into my mastermind level, or even just want to coach with me in any way, one of the things that has to happen first is you actually have to decide that and be all in and committed to 10xing your revenue. There's a great distinction I learned about 10 years ago that stuck with me during a very scary time in my life, and that is, are you committed or are you just interested? See, committed people do whatever it takes. They work with their coach and they follow the protocol. They put things into action. They are not going to take any excuses from themselves or others, and they are willing to face their greatest fears and move beyond them. It doesn't mean your fears aren't relevant or real. It just means you can feel that fear, but you can continue to choose to be the person who gets their work out in the world. When you're interested, what happens is you literally do what's comfortable. You only do the things that give you the illusion you're making movement, but you do not actually make progress. So you get addicted to being busy because it feels like you're doing a lot of stuff, but you're not getting real results. And that's because you're only interested. And I can pretty much spot people pretty quickly now when they come in and they want to coach with me, and I give them a couple of things to do. And if they don't do them, they're not they're just interested. Interested means you like the idea of having more money, getting your work out in a greater way, but what you're committed to is something else. And it could be anything. It could be you're more committed to continuing to educate yourself instead of actually getting results. It may mean you're more committed to your family, which totally honor that. But it means you're not making time to grow the work you're doing in the world. It may mean you're more committed to being comfortable and playing it safe than you are to taking bold action that will really get results. And I work with people who are committed. So knowing this difference is the key to shattering your earning limits, because I guarantee you, anyone in my program who does not get results is because they've leaned back into safety zone. They will lean back into, I don't want to make a mistake. You have to be willing to shatter your limiting beliefs. You have to move through your fears, and you literally have to rewire your thinking to produce better results. And I want to say one thing. I am a huge fan of effortless success, meaning how do I really expand in a way that feels so aligned and so powerful and so organically sustainable that I can do anything I want, versus feeling like, oh, I got to hustle and I got to be up till midnight tonight because I got a long list of stuff to do. Like, I'm not in that model. I like producing supernovas who shine so bright and it's so magnetic. Things just pull in effortlessly.
That's definitely our ideal, right? I mean,
Yeah.
Staying up to midnight trying to get things done is definitely, you want to get out of that. And Dawn
It's not
Marie,
sustainable, right?
well, no, exactly. And everybody loses out, and even your clients too, right? Because you're not in front of the people that really need you necessarily,
Right.
because you haven't given into allowing that to be the case. Your mindset is kind of holding you back.
Yeah.
Dawn Marie says, you know, sometimes it's when you get sick and tired of being sick and tired that you finally make the decision. Once again, it's your choice, which is kind of an interesting thing, because you know, you could say it's your choice, but there's probably a lot of people out there that go, no, I don't really have a choice. This is the way it's going. Yet you can choose. So you really want to embrace that. And Lillian says, absolutely. I often have planning in quote perfection paralysis. Yes. Never wait for perfection, because you will never do anything.
I love it. Oh my God, because this is the next thing I want to talk about.
It is too. Look at that. All right. Well, let's actually delve into that. So before we wrap up, thank you very much, everyone who's joined us and stayed on. Please leave any messages. Come back afterwards if you're watching the replay. We'll be happy to respond. But before we wrap up, you mentioned early how important it is to do the right things. What if someone doesn't know what those right things are?
I love this. First of all, let me just say, I'm going to share a free resource for you in a minute that's going to help with all the things we talked about, but in particular this one. So doing the right things. First of all, thank you so much. I think it was Lillian who brought up the perfectionism thing, because perfectionism is our Achilles heel. When you have a big, bold vision and you have a message you want to get out in a greater way, you're like fired up and you've got all this momentum going, perfectionism kills it. And what I have found is there's a few different versions of perfectionism. Some of it is control, where we're afraid to let go, to let others help us grow. Some it's like, I got to get everything right before I can launch. Totally kills momentum. And another one is like, I need to know how. I need to know how this is going to work before I feel comfortable and courageous enough to move forward. So here's really the whole thing. A lot of this is driven by our logic mind, and our logic mind is where fear likes to disguise itself. And fear is basically, I don't want to make a mistake. I'm afraid of doing it wrong. I don't want to lose people's respect or love or money or whatever it is. And so the logic mind, or our rational thinking, kicks in and says, well, if I wait and get it all right, I will minimize my mistakes. Now, there is a fine line between waiting for perfection and getting things figured out enough that you can deploy effectively. And so understanding that line is critical to keep momentum high. And as a matter of fact, I was just reading somebody's email this morning, one of the big name marketers in the women's space, and she was talking about like how her own momentum had gotten crippled by trying to wait for perfection and trying to get some things clear. We have to know how to quickly qualify what are the right things. And so when I do the Own Your Bold Challenge, in the last step, I teach you how to prioritize what the right things are for you right now, and what are the things that you really need to wait longer to get more clarity on before you get into them. Because sometimes we're putting the easy things in the wait category, and we're putting the hard things into fast motion, but we're making major mistakes that are costing a lot of time and money because we don't have enough figured out. So one of the tricks to that is really understanding what can create momentum the fastest. What if I get into this groove will expand my excitement? I am a firm believer you have to chase your spark. If you follow your spark and you let that spark guide you, but then you use the right tools to help prioritize and keep yourself in the what's going to make the greatest momentum happen the fastest mode, then you will always be in that effortless flow. And it will help tame what I call that logic mind, right? The chitter chatter in your head where fear starts to take over and try to make your growth decisions for you. Is if you stay focused on the end, stay focused on the thing that you're committed to, what that bold goal or that bold vision is, and you just keep moving towards that, like literally like, okay, today I'm going to do the next thing. Today I'm going to do the next thing. Today I'm going to do the next thing. Doesn't always have to be the perfect thing, but that's what keeps momentum high.
Beautiful. That's that consistency. I love the spark too. Like you you know, if it sparks you, if it gets you excited, then you're going to want to do it. And you're right, things that you're excited about don't seem to have that negativity pull or that resistance where your magnets are kind of forcing each other away, right? If you can go with the flow and stop procrastinating through perfection,
Yes.
then there's so much that you can do. That's exciting. Well, this has been phenomenal. 40 minutes of incredible information and a lot to think about, I think, for a lot of us. I'm really excited about your special offer that you have. So I would love for you to share that now, and then we'll get the link up in this the comments as
Well,
soon
I
as.
mentioned a couple times about the Own Your Bold Challenge, and last year I did only 2 of them live. This year, for a limited time, I have opened it up, and you can take it now. So we're not going to leave it up forever, but the challenge basically is 5 days where each day I teach you one of the principles of boosting your influence, simplifying to multiply, and really figuring out how do you become the person that's shining your light so bright that your ideal audience not just sees you but feels compelled to come into your little stratosphere and learn and grow with you. So, you know, if you're a speaker, how are you shining your light so bright that and being seen as the only logical choice so that people are hiring you for their events? If you're a coach or a consultant or a trainer or anyone that is sharing a service or a body of work, how do you get your message out so profoundly that people can't wait to hire you and work with you? So it's 5 days. Each day I deliver a special step to take. And then we've got a little bit of bonus training I'll let you know about ahead of time that will help you figure out how to keep that momentum alive. So it's free right now at ownyourboldchallenge.com.
Wonderful. That's exciting. And definitely if you haven't done it, or if you're ready to do it again, definitely take Melanie up on that, because I know that I have to go through my notes again. It's a really cool process, and it helps to get things written down and to have that understanding and that focus and the consistency, and build up momentum. So that's fabulous. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Lillian saying yes. Our talk today offered many sparks to think about. So thank you very much, Lillian, for being there, and Dawn Marie and anyone else that has joined us as well. And we don't see you right now. And Deb's just put up the challenge for us. So thank you so much, Deb. Really appreciate that. And everybody who is watching now that maybe hasn't heard about Women Speakers Association before, we invite you to come grab your Speaker Success Plan. So if you go to speakersuccessplan.com and grab your Speaker Success Plan, it's a great way to get started, either beginning your speaking business, in the middle of your speaking business, you know, you're already at the top of your game, but you're looking for that incredible community of mentors and support and training, then definitely come check us out. And once again, thank you so much, Melanie, for joining me. I love doing this. It feels like old times, except that we actually get to use our voices instead of just frantically typing along.
It's a lot easier, I will say that, to do it this way. And thanks so much for having me, and thanks for listening in today. I'd love to hear your takeaway. Like if you would share in the comments what's a inspired idea, something that's clicked for you, something you can put into action. I would just leave you with knowing that ideas create the spark, action creates the results. So put it into action. Let me know what you're going to do with it. I can't wait to hear.
All right. Thanks, everybody. And we'll see you next month on SpeakerChat.